All right, so A201, we spoke last time about the Article 8. All of that has to do with time. And remember me saying the word time is of the essence before? Well, it is of the essence. In my contract with my former electrician that he put time is not of the essence. That was the first time I would have ever seen that time was not of the essence. I was like, that's just outright wrong. Um, so now we go into a very important portion of this, which is Article 9, payment and completion. Payment is critical. I mean, if you can divide the project into multiple things, one is payment, actual labor, right? And time. Money, work, and time. Those are the triple constraints, the very critical stuff. So Article 9 is inherently very long because of that. So they define what contract sum is. And I think I spoke about it last time, but I'm going to repeat it anyway. So, and you guys can see the screen all good, everybody? Perfect. So the contract sum is stated in the agreement and including authorized adjustments. By the way, an authorized adjustment would have been if they approved my change order on the previous topic that I talked to you about. That's an authorized adjustment. Um, is the total amount payable by the owner to the contractor for performance of the work under the contract documents. And change orders are all included. Construction change directives are all included. All that stuff gets included into that contract sum. And it's all the money that Mr. Owner or Mrs. Owner or Madam Owner pays to the contractor. So then we go to 9.1.2. If unit prices are stated in the contract documents or subsequently agreed upon, and if quantities originally contemplated are materially changed, so the application of such unit prices to the actual quantities causes substantial inequity to the owner or contractor, the applicable unit prices shall be equitably adjusted. If the unit prices change by some reason, the cost of it, we'll have to change it. Like for instance, if the unit price of brick was supposed to be $2 and suddenly it becomes $10 and we haven't even started with the work, we got to change that, not unit price. And that was just a quick step. We did speak a little bit last time on 9.2 schedule of values. The schedule of values is actually one of the first submittals that we get from the contractor as per the A201. And this is on a traditional design, bid, build delivery method, which is the one that NCARB and AIA really push the most on the exams, on my experience. That's what they really push for the design, bid, build. So schedule values is without me getting into this, I'm gonna read it, but it's a document that outlines the cost of everything or everything that we could actually know the cost of. And it helps the architect when he gets an application for payment from the contractor understand what the amounts are, where the amounts came from. They cannot just be made up. They are on that schedule of values, right? And again, that's why in the unit pricing that in the unit that we spoke about 9.1.2, it says if it changes, we got to change it so that the schedule of values is accurate. And it helps us a lot with that to know what the prices of things are. Um, and again, I'm going to read it. Where the contract is based on a stipulated sum or guaranteed maximum price, which we call GMP, probably heard of that term. GMPs are typically done with design build delivery methods, actually, because the design builder has a good grasp on the design of the building early on to be able to actually say, I can do that for X amount, period. That's a guaranteed maximum price. The contractor shall submit a schedule of values to the architect before the first application for payment. And I explained that it's done before the first application for payment because how can we ascertain that the numbers are accurate? Right? We got to go back to the schedule values, get the first application for payment after that, and be like, okay, that looks good. And I always try to tell you guys what my process personally is. And I think that's the way it should be when you get an application for payment. You see the project schedule, you see the schedule values, you look at your last observation report from the site, and you look at the application for payment, and you compare all of those things and see what was done and what was not done, and what was supposed to be done that wasn't done, or what was done that was not supposed to be done. Because if something was done that wasn't supposed to be done, they may be front loading, which means adding a whole bunch of staff at the front to get a lot of money from the very beginning that wasn't supposed to happen at that particular time or that particular moment. Miranda just said that the construction manager as contractor uses GMP. That's a good way. Also because they have a lot of knowledge on what the project is all about. You know, design builders is kind of like a CMC on the sense that they've been involved from the very beginning. CMCs are involved from the very beginning. Is that right, Miranda?
Yeah, that's correct.
Love it. So allocating the entire contract sum to the various portions of the work. The schedule of values shall be prepared in the form and supported by the data to substantiate its accuracy. It's not just made up, all right? So if they have a price from such and such, you know, storefront, I can call the storefront and they will say, yeah, that's the price of the car. It wasn't just made up. And that's required by the architect. This schedule, unless objected by the architect, we can object it from the very beginning. It's like saying something bizarre, like, "Oh, that glass for that shower, it's gonna cost $4,000." I'll be like, "No, I can do a whole bathroom with $4,000. That's not right. You know, that's not the cost of that shower glass." So you can see it and you can argue it right when you get it. You can object it. Um, shall be used as the basis for reviewing the contractor's application for payments. That's the basis. Any changes to the schedule value shall be submitted to the architect and supported by data to substantiate its accuracy as the architect may require. And unless objected to by the architect, shall be used as the basis for reviewing the contractor's subsequent applications for payment. All applications for payments are based on that. We got to review that. And then we go to, yeah, our little friend applications for payment. So 9.3. At least 10 days before the date established for each progress payment. Let's say the payments are done every 30th of the month. On the 20th of the month, I should be getting a application for payment. And it's anticipating things that probably will be done by the 30th too, that are reasonably inferable. Like, yeah, that drive will be done by the 30th. Within 10 days, of course, we're going to be finishing that. So at least 10 days before the date established for each progress payment, the contractor shall submit to the architect. Why not to the owner on the 8201? Anybody knows why not to the owner? Why not? Why doesn't they? Why doesn't the contractor submit an application for payment directly to the owner within that 10 days period?
Because the architect is most familiar with the contract documents and because they've coordinated and done the drawings and specifications.
Those are all really good, but contractually, it's just because the contract says the architect's that's supposed to do that. You know, the contract, as the B101 says, that we're supposed to be doing what the 801 tells us to do. So, but the real reason behind that is because we know the contract documents more than the owner himself, right? But contractually, we're just bound to actually review this application for payments. And contractually, if you go to the design bid build delivery method as per this little document right here, the owner should talk to the contractor through the architect when it comes to the 8201 and construction documents, okay? It's through the architect that they talk. They don't talk directly. All communications in the 8201 says it from the contractor and the owner should go through the architect if it's related to the contract documents. I always joke around saying that the contractors and the owner could be chit-chatting about the latest game from the Patriots. It doesn't matter. They can talk about that stuff. But if it has to do with the contract documents, they have to involve the architect, okay? And again, at least 10 days before, um, and it has to be prepared in accordance with the schedule of values, right? That we just spoke about. For completed portions of the work. It's for completed portions of the work. Things that haven't been done, they can't charge for. The application shall be notarized, very good requirement, if required, and supported by all data substantiating the contractor's right to payment that the owner or architect require, such as copies of requisitions and releases and waivers of liens from subcontractors and suppliers, and shall reflect retainage if provided for in the contract documents. Pretty straightforward. Section 9.3.1, as provided in section 7.3.9, such applications may include requests for payment on account of changes in the work, change orders, you could ask for payment on those, that have been properly authorized by construction change directives or by interim determinations of the architect, or not yet included in the change orders. Remember that we can actually make a determination on the price of something that may not be agreed upon by everybody, and it may eventually become a claim, but we kind of act again as the initial decision maker, IDM, that's the term, in here. So all of those things got to be included on that application for payment. And again, our little friend construction change directive is right here, which is again like an executive order that the contractor doesn't necessarily need to agree on. They just have to do it. Like we were kind of given yesterday a construction change directive as contractors to fix the leveling of the floor. Same thing. All right. So, and the change orders too. So 9.3.1.2, applications for payment shall not include requests for payment for portions of the work for which the contractor does not intend to pay a subcontractor or supplier. It's pretty straightforward. My plumber is doing some plumbing work. They're completing it, but I'm not gonna pay them. But I'm asking for payment. Well, then you're already breaching the contract because remember that we have to get release of liens. If the plumber doesn't get paid, he's gonna file a lien. So you're already a liability. So unless such work has been performed by others whom the contractor intends to pay, he collects money for subs, and it's got to be for them. It can't just be for nothing. So 9.3.2, unless otherwise provided in the contract documents, payments shall be made on account of materials and equipment delivered and suitably stored at the site for subsequent portions of the work. So yeah, they can actually get paid for materials that they have already purchased, so long as they have been delivered and they are on a bonded facility, on an insured facility or location. Does it make sense? So, because if something happens, there's a fire with the material, that's got to be covered. You can't just have it at your mom's house. If approved in advance by the owner, payment may similarly be made for materials and equipment suitably stored offsite. Yeah, if it's again, at a location agreed upon in writing. It's got to be at a location where it's agreed upon. For many reasons, why if the contractor goes crazy or gets a heart attack and dies, like this goes right away to the insurance company. The insurance company will probably find another contractor and they will proceed with the work. Or what if the owner wants to just do the work? He can go get his material. He already paid for them. He owns them. So it's got to be at a location that has been agreed upon. And then we have to have access to that. Interestingly enough, we have to have access to it. Payment for materials and equipment stored on or off-site shall be conditioned upon compliance by the contractors with procedures satisfactory to the owner to establish the owner's title to such materials and equipment. You see, it's saying that the owner has to still own it afterwards, or if anything happens, or otherwise protect the owner's interest, and shall include the cost of applicable insurance, storage, transportation to the site for such materials and equipment stored off the site. Then we go back here. Section 9.3.3. The contractor warrants that title to all work covered by an application for payment will pass to the owner no later than the time of payment. So as soon as I pay you for something, it's mine. So as soon as I pay the contractor, right? As soon as the contractor gets a check, the owner has ownership of that work. This is why there's a clause that we spoke about before on our previous sessions, where the contractor cannot break or damage finished work. It's actually illegal for them to damage finished work. Why? Because it doesn't even belong to them. Does that make sense? It doesn't belong to them. As soon as I pay you for it, it's mine. I own it. I can do whatever I want with it. So again, the contractor warrants the title to all work covered by an application for payment will pass to the owner no later than the time of payment. The contractor further warrants that upon submittal of an application for payment, all work for which certificate for payments have been previously issued and payments received from the owner shall, to the best of the contractor's knowledge, information, and belief, be free of clear of liens, claims, security interests, or encumbrances in favor of the contractor, subcontractor, suppliers, or other persons or entities provided labor, materials, and equipment relating to the work. They're just really giving warranty over that work, saying it is yours and only yours, and nobody else, no sub, nobody else has any right over that. You've paid for it. It's truly yours. This is important because what if Jose and Jose Plumbing want to come back and say no, he hasn't paid me for it? Well, you deal with him, not with me. I own that. That's mine. And that's why we also get releases of liens and things like that. Sorry about that. Let me get a sip of coffee real quick, and we're going to talk about certificates for payment. By the way, certificates for payment are an actual document issued by the AIA that I would like all of you to be familiar with. And I think we all went through it on the AIA website. We downloaded a sample. I want you to read it and know what it actually says and how it actually works. You're going to need that for construction evaluation. You're going to need that for life. The architect will, within 7 days after receipt of the contractor's application for payment, remember that they has 10 days prior to the payment to actually submit this. So we only have 3 left after this, right? Because within 7 days of receiving the application for payment, the architect shall do the following 3 things. 1, issue to the owner a certificate for payment in the full amount of the application for payment. So we give it back to the owner and say, owner, you're good to go. Write a check to this guy for this amount. And then 2, issue to the owner a certificate for payment for such amount as the architect determines is properly due. Oh, wait a minute. I saw some mistakes. We're not going to pay the $100,000 they say. We're only going to pay $90,000 because there's $10,000 on things that they didn't do. They never even got it to the site. Or they probably did, but I didn't see it. So to protect the project, I will just issue $90,000. And the owner will write a check for $90,000. But when that happens, again, we will issue a certificate for payment to the owner with that amount, and we'll notify the architect and the owner of the reasons why we are not giving the full amount. It may actually be more, by the way. Not trying to be a jerk here, saying that it's 90. It probably could be 110,000. Then great, they are entitled to 110,000. Doesn't really happen that often that a contractor gives you an application for payment for 100,000 that they actually are entitled to 110. If you tell me one time that happened, I will play the lottery and I'll probably win, because that doesn't happen. So 3, we hold certification of the entire application for payment and notify the contractor and owner of the architect's reason for withholding certification in whole as provided in section 9.5.1. Now, Miranda or anybody in the class, can anybody tell me why you would withhold a complete application for payment? Like basically no issue any payment. Give me a reason. There could be a million of them, but give me a reason.
If something in their schedule of values is incorrect.
Well, wouldn't you just do option 2? Just not pay for that incorrect portion of the schedule of values and pay for the rest? Why would you withhold a full application for payment?
Okay, if you find out that the contractor is not paying a subcontractor.
How would you actually know about that? Because you're not supposed to talk to the subs, and the subs aren't supposed to talk to you.
Well, I think the subcontractor, there is something in the 8201 about them contacting the owner or architect if they're not being paid.
Well, you probably might find a claim or a lien on the property, and then that's how you probably will find out, like a letter, saying there's a lien being placed because the subs aren't being paid. You will know about that. Okay? But that wouldn't be also a reason to withhold payment for the full application for payment. You would just withhold payment for that particular sub until the matter gets resolved.
No, it's under 9.5.3. Failure of the contractor to make any payments properly to subcontractors or suppliers for labor, materials, or equipment. That's a decision to withhold certification.
Good. We're gonna get to that one in a minute. But you okay. So if there's but again, wouldn't you just withhold portion of that, not just the full amount? Because it's too, like say it's Mr. Plumber, Miranda and Miranda Plumbing. It's just that one. So let's just withhold payment for that one. Why would you do the full certificate for payment?
Because they might then proceed to continue to not pay the subcontractor.
Yeah, generally it's because when in doubt, let's play it safe, right? Why would I do that, right? Let's play it very safe. Let's withhold payment. And also it will create a sense of urgency from the contractor to fix the issue, because it's got to get paid all the money that the other subs probably want, that everybody wants, right? So you know what? It's also maybe a sneaky, right? A little sneaky little thing that the contractor's doing. We just want to play it safe. Does it make sense? Another reason maybe that the work wasn't done. That's the most obvious one. Well, that whole certificate of payment for foundation, they never poured concrete. They never even dug out the hole. You know what I mean? Like they saying that the whole foundation was finished and poured. Let's check the site next door. They probably poured in the wrong in the wrong lot, right? That may be a reason, right? Another thing is we might have found out that the whole company has gone bankrupt. It's out of business. Why am I going to issue a certificate of payment for a company that just filed for bankruptcy? No, I wouldn't do that. You would know that by notice too. You probably get a notice. Okay. Okay. So then we go to section 9.4.2. The issuance of a certificate for payment will constitute a representation by the architect to the owner. You see, our duty is to the owner, not to the architect, not to the contractor. Based on the architect evaluation of the work and the data in the application for payment, that to the best of the architect's knowledge, information, and belief. So our personal knowledge, the information we see, and our belief in good faith, the work has progressed to the point indicated the quality of the work is in accordance with the contract documents, and that the contractor is entitled to payment in the amount certified. The foregoing representations are subject to an evaluation of the work for conformance with the contract documents upon substantial completion. All right, all of that is like, yep, looks good overall, but it still is contingent upon what's going to happen at substantial completion. To results of subsequent test and inspection, to correction of minor deviation from the contract documents prior to completion, and to specific qualifications expressed by the architect. Okay. All right. So, however, the issuance of the certificate for payment will not be a representation that the architect has, one, made exhaustive or continuous on-site inspections to check the quality or quantity of the work. We do not do exhaustive on-site inspections. Two, review construction means, methods, techniques, sequences, or procedures, because we're not supposed to do anything with construction means, methods, techniques, sequences, and procedures. Three, review copies of requisitions received from subcontractors and suppliers and other data requested by the owner to substantiate that the contractor right to payment. And four, main examination to ascertain, like we're not reviewing a lot of the requisition, and we actually are not making examinations to ascertain how or for what purpose the contractor has used the money previously paid in the account on the amount the account of the contract sum. That's it. Now here's our reasons to withhold payment. Thank you so much, Miranda, for bringing this one to our attention. Decision to withhold certification. The architect may withhold a certificate for payment in whole or in part to the extent reasonably necessary to protect the owner if, in the architect's opinion, the representations to the owner required by section 9.4.2 cannot be made. We cannot make in good belief, good faith, blah, 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 the representation that those amounts are accurate. So we don't do it. So if the architect is unable to certify payment in the amount of the application, the architect will notify the contractor. That's one thing I want you to know. What happens if you can't certify? Well, you notify the contractor and owner as provided in section 9.4.1. If the contractor and architect cannot agree on a revised amount, the architect will promptly issue a certificate of payment for the amount for which the architect is able to make such representation to the owner. Because our representation on our certificate for payments are to the owner, okay? Not to the contractor. And again, we got to do it promptly because we don't want the contractor to say we're delayed because we didn't get payment. Well, I'm going to issue payment for what I believe you should be issued a payment. All right. So the architect may also withhold a certificate for payment, or because of subsequently discovered evidence, may notify the whole or part of a certificate for payment previously issued. In this case, let's say I'm saying to my Mr. Owner, change order number 1, we are leveling the concrete floor. we actually installed the whole flooring and never leveled the concrete floor. And we put the floor on top of that, the actual finished floor, and it's waggly. Well, on the next application for payment, we're going to deduct that amount and say, no, you didn't complete that. You could actually nullify that previous payment, but you're going to reflect it on the next one, I would say, you know? Or you can ask the contractor to issue a refund. Good luck with that. I don't think you will get a refund. You can just use the next application for payment and deduct it from there. Because again, because of that's an evidence, subsequently discovered evidence. Like if this the flooring that I was talking to you about on a project that we did that was bouncy, we had already been paid to level that. And my contract would have said that it was supposed to be level, and Mr. Jose didn't level it, then we are not entitled to payment. In fact, this is why the owner has a good chunk of the money still left to pay for our substantial completion. And this is me acting as contractor. I don't want to confuse you. I do construction and I do architecture, and sometimes I combine the two. So in this case, I try to put the hats in the place that they go so that you know when I'm talking as a contractor, when I'm talking as an architect, what's the difference. So, and here I'm just saying that if we would have been in the contract, you know, in our schedule value, there probably would have been an item saying leveling of concrete flooring to receive new flooring, line item, $2,000. If it's in there and then they start the flooring and it's all wiggly, hey, something's wrong there, right? It's a shortcut. It's a little cutting corners, right? So, to such extent as may be necessary in the architect's opinion to protect the owner from loss for which the contractor was responsible, including loss resulting from acts and omissions described in section 3.3.2. Because of one, defective work not remedied. Two, third-party claims. Remember, claims. I said that. Third-party claims file or reasonable evidence indicating probable filing of such claims unless security acceptable to the owner is provided by the contractor. This is the one I told you about, Miranda, that there may be claims from the subs. Three, failure of the contractor to make payments properly to subcontractors or suppliers for labors, materials, or equipment. Three will give rise to two, right? Because the contractor hasn't paid his subs, the subs are probably filing claims. So both of those are reasons why we would withhold certificate for payment, in portion or in whole. Reasonable evidence that the work cannot be completed for the unpaid balance of the contract sum. This is a good one, and I want you to understand what this means. Reasonable evidence that the work cannot be completed for the unpaid balance of the contract sum. And this one requires a little bit of thinking even for me. What it really looks like is that, let's say we got a project for $1 million. We have paid the client, the contractor, about $850,000. There is, if my math doesn't get wrong, $150,000 left to complete the work, but they're not even halfway done. So we got a problem. There are many reasons to that problem. One of them is the architect has been certifying payments that he should have never been certifying payment. But the other thing is that the contractor has been asking for payments that he should have never asked for payments too. So there are two sides to that story. So, but also it could be that the architect has been doing his job and everybody else is doing their job. But then we get the notice from 3 and 2 that subs have never been paid. Never. And there's only $150,000 left on the job. And the subs are filing claims left and right for like $300,000. You're like, wait a minute. We're in trouble here. Houston, we got problems. So that's when you stop immediately and try to figure out how are we going to complete this job. And I mean, it's a complicated procedure, but we got to involve the insurance company. We got to figure out what the issue with the claims are and all that stuff. And it has to get resolved. But that's a good spot to stop right there. You don't keep just paying because then you're going to have a lot less money to deal with the problem. Now, there's another one. Five is damage to the owner or a separate contractor. Now, that's what I said to you. Remember that after every certificate of payment, that work is transferred to the owner. It belongs to the owner. So the contractor can just get pissed and break it. By the way, I've had my fears with my own subs. Not every sub, but there's one sub, very questionable sub that we'll never use again, that I feel would actually go and break things if I don't do what he wants. And I'm like, that's wrong. Don't do that to me. You know, um, I shouldn't have that fear, but I do, because contractors sometimes they go nuts. So they should not damage work or work from another contractor. Let's say the contractor didn't get the contract for the pool. I always keep making a pool as an example, but they got the contract for the whole job, and they're mad at the pool contractor because he was outbidding them by like a lot of money, and he's ridiculous, and they're mad, and they start breaking things so that the numbers go up, so that they say, "You see, I told you it was supposed to cost more." That's just me making up story, but that's a case. They can't be damaging stuff. Reasonable evidence that the work will not be completed within the contract time. That's a good one, Miranda. That's a good one. By the way, these seven, I want you to remember them because they may be a check all that apply kind of question. All right. That the unpaid balance would not be adequate to cover actual or liquidated damages for the anticipated delay, or that repeated failure to carry out the work in accordance with the contract document. That's a good one. They're not doing the work how it's supposed to be done, and they keep failing. 3 warnings, 1, 2, 3, out. All right, so section 9.5.2. When either party disputes the architect's decision regarding a certificate for payment under section 9.5.1, in whole or in part, that party may submit a claim in accordance with Article 15. Great. 9.5.3, when the reasons for withholding certification for are removed, certification will be made for amounts previously withheld. They fix the issue, they pay their subs, they resolve the matter. Any of these seven are resolved, you pay them. Immediately you pay them. Okay? So then we go to section 9.5.4. If the architect withholds certification for payment under section 9.5.1.3, the owner may, at its sole option, issue joint checks to the contractor and to any subcontractor or supplier to whom the contractor failed to make payment for work properly performed or material or equipment suitably delivered. If the owner makes payments by joint check, the owner shall notify the architect and the contractor shall reflect such payment on its next application for payment. This is a very nice one right here. It's happened to me not as the architect, but as the owner, where I write a check. You know what? I have my contractor, and I don't trust my contractor for whatever reason. You know what? I'll write you a check for your application for payment for like $10,000, whatever that is. And you know what? I'm gonna write the other $5,000. You want a 15? I'm gonna write you a check for $5,000 to the cabinet guy directly. I'm gonna send it over to him. It's all set. There may be many reasons. It's not just trusting. It's just that in construction there is a lot of shifting and moving parts, and you pay for something, but they buy something else, and they finish this, they get paid, and they pay for the other thing, but this thing is delayed. Construction is really, really fun and really, really crazy too. There's a lot of minutiae that we have to deal with, and I don't want to get into how they manage their work, so long as my work is done as per the schedule, in budget, on budget, and on time. But I have had to issue payments to people, uh, uh, mainly also because I have given them my word, and I don't want the contractor to fail on my word. Like, hey, that's my cabinet manufacturer. That's the one I'm gonna use. I like them. They want payment. You know what? I'm gonna send them the payment. It's all set, and I reduce it from the contract. I don't. I as a contractor, I wouldn't like my client to do that actually, because I have my own arrangements with my cabinet guys, and I'm gonna figure some things out. Maybe I won't give him the full payment. Maybe I'll give him just 3,000 instead of the 5,000 until they finish the installation, so they don't walk away. Because I deal with the subs more, but they may be again an instance where the owner wants to pay that. Okay. So section 9.6, progress payments. After the architect has issued a certificate for payment, the owner shall make payment in the manner and within the time provided in the contract documents, and shall so notify the architect. Because the check probably doesn't get given to the architect right away. It probably gets sent to the contractor directly. That's fine. They got to let us know that they did it so that we amend it. Ideally, they'll give it to us and we'll give it to them. That's ideal because we manage the contract for construction. Section 9.6.2. The contractor shall pay each subcontractor no later than 7 days after receipt of payment from the owner the amount to which the subcontractor is entitled, reflecting percentages actually retained from payments to the contractor on account of the subcontractor's portion of the work. The contractor shall, by appropriate agreement with each subcontractor, require each subcontractor to make payments to subcontractors in a similar manner. Transferring of this. Section 9.6.3, the architect will, on request, furnish to a subcontractor, if applicable, information regarding percentages of completion or amounts applied by the contractor and action taken thereon by the architect and owner on account of portions of the work done by such subcontractor. And we go to section 9.6.4, the owner has the right to request written evidence from the contractor that the contractor has properly paid subcontractors and suppliers amounts paid by the owner to the contractor for subcontractor work. If the contractor fails to furnish such evidence within 7 days, the owner shall have the right to contact directly the subcontractors and suppliers to ascertain whether they have been properly paid. By the way, this is a clause that breaks our own contract. It's saying under these circumstances, can the owner actually contact the subcontractor? Because as you guys know, in our 8201, the owner has no relationship with the subcontractor. Make sense? They cannot talk to each other. All right. Neither the owner nor the architect shall have an obligation to pay or to see to the payment of money to a subcontractor or supplier, except as may be otherwise required by law. Because we don't have a contract with them. We want to make sure they're paid so that we can ensure whether we should pay our contractor or not. We're not necessarily paying them. But again, it says it before that we could if we wanted to, but we're not required to unless the law says so. Does it make sense? Does it make sense, guys? All right.
Yep.
All right. So the contractor's payment to suppliers shall be treated in manner similar to that provided in section 9.6.2, 9.6.3, 9.6.4. Great. Then we go to section 9.6.6. A certificate for payment, a progress payment, or partial or entire use or occupancy of the project by the owner shall not constitute acceptance of work not in accordance with the contract documents. What he's saying is the fact that I'm paying you doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's correct, doesn't mean it's fixed, doesn't mean it's perfect. The fact that I'm inhabiting the space after you've done some work doesn't mean you did it correctly. Because the owner might need to occupy the space for convenience, but he may not be happy with the work and he may file a claim against the contractor because the work wasn't done as per the contract documents. So, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, you cooked me dinner last night, but I'm still mad at you. You didn't do a good job. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter that I'm using this space. It doesn't matter that I'm enjoying that space. It's not in accordance with the contract documents. I don't want you to believe that because I'm smiling to you right now as I move into the space, it means that the space is right. And I'm trying to contextualize. I hope it makes sense, right? Because it's saying because neither can the owner actually accept this thing. First, it's got to go through the architect. The owner, of course, can accept non-conforming work, but it first has to go through the architect. So section 9.6.7. Unless the contractor provides the owner with a payment bond in the full penal sum of the contract sum, payments received by the contractor for work properly performed by the subcontractors or provided by suppliers shall be held with the contract by the contractor for those subcontractor or suppliers who perform the work or furnish materials or both on the contract with the contractor for which payment was made by the owner. I mean, you know how you write payment like on your check, payment for cabinets, whatever, that's a legal thing that goes to court and that's used. I was paying you for the cabinets, right? So I paid for the cabinets, and if it turns out that later on the contractor didn't pay the cabinets, that's a problem. It's saying in here, whatever I have paid you for somebody else, it's got to go to that somebody else. Period. I don't care when and I don't care how, but you got to pay it to them. So, and the same thing goes for like an Amazon order or some materials order or whatever. Like it's for that. So that's the order. That's what it needs to pay for. So nothing contained herein shall require money to be placed in a separate account and not commingled with money of the contractor. Create any fiduciary liability or tort liability on the part of the contract. Like, I want you to research what tort liability means, and fiduciary liability means. To create any fiduciary liability or tort liability on the part of the contractor for breach of trust or entitle any person or entity to an award of punitive damages against the contractor for breach of the requirements of this provision. This is a commingled provision. I don't fully understand it. It will take me a little while to digest it, and probably the same to you, but generally it has to do with that. Like, payments are for these. Don't just have 10 accounts and put money on different accounts. Don't just start investing in the stock market. Like, this money is for this project and that's it. Don't mess it up. So 9.6.8, provided the owner has fulfilled its payment obligations under the contract documents, the contractor shall defend and indemnify the owner from loss of all loss, liability, damage, or expense, including reasonable attorney's fees and litigation expenses arising out of any lien claim or other claim for payment by any subcontractor or supplier or of any tier. Upon receipt of notice of a lien claim or other claim for payment, the owner shall notify the contractor if approved by their applicable court. When required, the contractor may substitute a surety bond for the property against which the lien or other claim for payment has been asserted. Mouthful. So 9.7. And again, I want you to read these things, but this one is a to defending or harmless type of liability, type of piece, where they have to protect us because we've done our part as architect contractor, architect owner, paying them. We've already paid them, so we're not in breach of contract. And if something arises from their own breach of contract to somebody else, we are not liable. In fact, we're probably gonna have to go to court. Nobody wants, like, nobody, I mean, I'm gonna rephrase that, but I wouldn't like the subs not to get paid because we're gonna all end up in court. And if the subs didn't get paid for money that I have paid you, I hate that I'm gonna waste time and money on an attorney to go to court, which you and then later on as contractor will have to pay back to us because we paid you. Does that make sense? Where's my phone is ringing? Um, I'm gonna pause it there for a minute, section 9.7, and we're gonna resume in a minute. It's a little water break if you guys don't mind, okay?